Welcome to the Craft and Business Podcast. I am Eric, and we are here with, looking at my notes, and that's totally not cool. I can't do that.
We need to get somebody in here to do cue cards for you.
Somebody, I usually have a teleprompter with my notes so I can look at the camera while I'm
Say our own names. Cut.
No, this is way more difficult than doing it in studio, just in front of the camera and nobody there.
Yeah. You got this.
You should see how many times I make him start and stop videos that we do. I'm like, nope, start over.
Yeah, the early videos, I'd be in the middle of like, okay, today I'm going to show this, thinking I'm going to make this quick video. She's like, shut up, start over. Not that either. Do it again. Don't sound stupid. Come on.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are here with Katie Bell and Jack the Hammer. Yes, he did give himself that nickname. And if you want to learn more about it, you can check it out on their website. Thank you guys so much for being the first victims of the in-person podcast.
Yeah.
It took a while to get all this shenanigans set up, but we're finally here and we're doing it. And so, welcome. And why did you let Jack choose his own nickname?
Mostly because it was in the name of the business, and I was Belle. So he said, "Do I get to be the Hammer?" And I said, "We'll see." But now we're 5 years in.
Yeah.
Certain number of years in.
And marriage. Yeah. Once we got hitched, then I got to be the.
I think people kept asking, "Well, who's the Hammer if you're Belle?" And I'm like, Jack.
So was the business in operation before Jack came on board?
Slightly. So right around the same time, he started his business, and then I was starting the idea of Hammer and Bell, and he was like, "Why don't we join forces?" And I was like, "That sounds like a much better idea than me doing this solo." So I had already had the sort of brand, the name going, but and he had terrible business name, Competent Stairworks and Joinery. So
Well, it was
my business name.
It was a provocation. I was trying to get her to partner up with me, and I knew she was nervous about some of the connections and things of how to get things going. And so I went to start my business first, and I told my lawyer, I said, I want a name that's really, really bad. And the first shot was Guy Building Shit. And he did not think that was funny. He said, nobody is going to pay a $10,000 check to Guy Building Shit. So I said, all right, Competent Woodworks. And he said, that is only marginally better. And I said, why? He said, because nobody can spell competent and nobody's going to sit in. So anyways, landed on Competent, and I was like, Katie, here we go. I'm Competent Woodwork. She was like, oh, the fuck you are.
My business name.
So it was provocation.
He was basically telling me for years, just start your own business. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. It's, and he was like, it's easy. And I'm like, if it's so easy, you do it and I'll join you. And that's kind of what we did. So
How did you guys meet?
we met. So we both worked at the same millwork company. I had been there for 2 or 3 years. Funny story. I remember my boss coming around and telling me, Monday we're going to have a new guy starting. I'm going to have him working with you. You can show him around. And then Monday rolled around and he wasn't there. And I was like, where's this new guy? And he's like, I don't know. He got in a car wreck and like broke his face or something. And so even before he started, he was like known to me as Broke Face Jack. Because that was the running joke.
It took 2 years to get that out of work.
Yeah. And then, he started on, and I sort of joked that he tried to steal my job because I used to get all the really complicated one-off custom stuff. And then here comes Jack, and he was getting a lot of that work. And then slowly we were working on projects together. So, yeah.
And so currently, you guys are Hammer and Bell and specializing in custom staircases.
Yes. The majority of work we get lately has been custom staircases. We also do doors, windows, mantles, built-ins, pretty much anything but there is a need for the high-end stair market, and we are filling that need right now.
Is that the kind of target of the target of the future of the company? Staying with stairs, specializing in that, or do you think you'll always be open to other projects?
I think we'll always be open to other projects. What would you say?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that we really, because Katie was nervous about putting all of our eggs in the stair basket, and one of the reasons that we did was basically, the old capitalist idea of, what people need, do that thing. And there's a huge hole for high-end stairs. There are people that are doing them, but they're hard to find. They don't advertise. They run their business sort of as a niche clubhouse, or the people that you've heard of don't do the best work. And so we very quickly found ourselves being offered way more stair work than anything else. And so we just said, all right, let's follow that. And then
we've also seen a lot of woodworkers we do everything and sort of spread themselves too thin where they don't do one thing well. And we definitely wanted to try to avoid that. We say we'll take on anything, but we are kind of picky.
Yeah, like recently we got offered a $100,000 door package, and it was one of those things where it's like, we very much have our shop set up for anything. You've got to sort of have a very particular layout to do a large quantity of doors, right? You very much have to understand what your objective is. If you're doing cabinet work, you have to have a very different shop layout than a stair business than anything else. And that door job, it's like, man, this would be a huge door job. It would be wonderful. All riffs on white oak, peg joinery. It would be a fantastic job. It was a project up north. And the fact of the matter was, when we looked around the shop, it's like we would have to change so much about what we do to run that.
While running our other jobs too.
Yeah. So we've got, a shaper, that's sort of set up, to be, we just got to fix some wiring in and it's ready to run. So we could do that. But at the end of the day, unless somebody wants to pay us an enormous amount per door, or it's super specialized and can't be done anywhere else, it doesn't make sense. We can't give you the best product at the best price. And so for us, when we realized the cost on us to be able to do that door job, just wasn't worth it. So yeah, it's sort of we got laughed at by somebody who was like, really, you're not going to take on a door job that big? And it's just like, we've been doing this work long enough to realize that the toll that the work takes on us, we've only got so many jobs left in our lives.
Plus, we're trying to prioritize some larger jobs that would take precedent, and it would just be a lot to juggle in our space right now. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you guys are incredibly skilled. I mean, the work that I've seen you guys do, mind-blowing. How did you get to this point of craftsmanship? A quick synopsis of where it started, how you got into it, and how the development happened, and up to the point of starting the business.
you want to go first?
Well, back in 1982, I was a twinkle in my father's eye. So the quickest way forward, I did everything that I was interested in. Anything. I was the person who would always find the hard way, because it's like, oh, this way is more interesting. People are like, just cut the damn thing and put it up. It's like, but there's something more interesting over here. And so I always followed what made me happy. And that often put me in financial straits. That often put me in a lot of difficulty. But it's really it's really hard to talk about how I got where I am without talking about myriads of luck, right? There is the old adage, right? Luck favors the prepared. But the fact of the matter is, I showed up and I was doing something. I wasn't interested. The guy who was my boss, was like, oh, okay, well, so-and-so over there is doing something cooler. Go check them out. Oh, well, so-and-so said I should come check it out. And the guy's like, okay, I got an opening and come work for me. And every little thing that I did, I got uptake, right? The world sort of met me where I was at and where my interests were. And so in some ways, it's disingenuous to just say, well, I just did what I was excited about, and then the world sort of made me a path, right? There is a certain sense in which that happened, but when I look at other people who have done the same basic thing, they're scattered to the four winds, right? They're no longer in the industry. They're doing other stuff. And so as far as a repeatable formula about how I got excellent at something, the biggest thing, that is the overriding theme is I did what made me happy. I didn't always know that was the thing that was going to make me happy at the time, but I pursued flourishing. I pursued, those bigger, longer term interests, those bigger questions, those bigger methodologies, those bigger things. And yeah, I got lucky enough that the universe met me with the right people at the right times. I mean, if I listed the whole story out, it's one of those stupidly shocking stories. That's sort of me.
One thing he left out is that he kind of grew up in the trades, working with his dad.
Dirge.
And so he had a pretty decent background to go off of. I did not grow up in the trades. Both my parents worked for a university and had horticulture degrees. So I was bored. I worked a day job, a desk job, and I was bored. I hated sitting at a desk all day, and I didn't have any marketable skills, even though I had been to college and done a lot of stuff, had a lot of experiences. I didn't have any skill. And somebody along the way had I was always one of those people that didn't have a specific passion, and I thought that was like a deficit in me. And then somebody, might have been like a TED Talk or something, somebody was saying to instead of following your passion, follow your curiosity. And my curiosity led me to art history, which led me to the idea of historic preservation. And I almost went to grad school for that, but other than SCAD, I couldn't really find anyone doing the work. It was a lot of talking about the work, reading about the work, writing about the work, but I wanted to do the work. And I'd learned through a myriad of hands-on jobs that I liked working with my hands. And so through sort of trying to find different schools, I found a school that specialized in traditional building methods. And at first I had no idea. It wasn't like I'm going to do carpentry. I went and toured the school and thought all the trades were wonderful and wanted to do them all. That wasn't an option, and just sort of decided. I decided on carpentry, mostly because it seemed to have the most range, and I wasn't good at it at first. But got a lot of really good education in the school, and then the school also encouraged you to do internships, and I had a lot of really good internships. A lot of students did really romantic internships in Germany and Italy and got to do fantastic things, but I was an older student. I was going back to school, and I knew that at the end of my education, I needed to get a job in the town, in this town, so I needed to make connections. And I got some really good internships and then got a job where I learned probably twice as much as, if not more, than what I learned in school, because it was every day. It was more practical, less romantic, less cutting dovetails, but got a lot of really good experience and a lot of had a really good boss that let me make mistakes. I've heard a lot of stuff on the job. So, yeah, that's about it, I think.
Yep. So what's the business look like now? Obviously you're doing stairs and other stuff, but the team's growing. You're in this not new location, but newer location, and planning on moving beyond this spot. What's the business look like? The day-to-day operations, how's that factor into your lifestyle, and how does business look these days?
Lifestyle. I would say the business was our lifestyle. When we started, I remember wanting to talk to somebody about setting good boundaries around work and life. And somebody else in the industry told me a new business is like a new baby. You would never set down a new baby and take a break from it. And I'm like, okay, that is somewhat encouraging because we don't have good boundaries. The lifestyle is the business. The day-to-day, I don't know. Right now is always a slow season between like Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's always a little crickets, but we have some projects we're working on, and we have a lot of jobs in the works. A lot of time is spent on bidding and communication and relationships. Some of these jobs take a lot of like romance. It's almost like dating someone to get the job, especially with the amount of time we put in, amount of back and forth, the amount of details and the plans. So lately we've been doing a lot of bidding and strategizing and planning. And, if we get all these jobs that we're bidding, then what does that look like? A lot of talks like that. And we're expanding in some really exciting ways. We have a partnership with a guy in Seattle, a world-renowned stair designer that he's done some incredible work for, I think, people I can't even mention because of NDAs. But so we're starting a new venture with him where he's potentially he is selling and designing for us that is potentially going to take us all over the country. So we're looking at a job in Washington and Wisconsin and potentially more. Texas, yeah. So, you want to speak on that at all?
Yeah, it's hard. One of the things that we're having to figure out. So, so this gentleman out of Seattle, Sean Chrisman, who's a ridiculous individual. He's awesome and wonderful. We were at the Stairmakers Association last in March, and we were asked to sit on a panel to talk about labor retention, training people, and things like that. And after the session,
well, we actually said, I don't know that you want us to talk about this because not only are we a small shop and we don't have many employees, but we're not probably going to say what you want to hear.
Well, and so we talked to the guy who is mediating the doing sort of the, what's it called?
Who's sort of emceeing that?
Yeah. Who's running the panel over a Skype. And, I was saying some stuff and everybody's eyes were just glazing over on the Zoom. And I said, I just need to stop real quick. I said, you're all probably wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about? I said, just full disclosure, we are an anarchist communist organization, and that's how we run our business.
And I was like, please don't say that to them. Please don't say that. And he said that.
And what was hilarious, and so I finished talking about how, we care, and radical responsibility and how we structure our business and things like that.
How we foster a relationship with the employee as a person, not as a business entity.
Yeah, and I brought up, when somebody was saying something, I brought up the fact that it's like, listen, all modern management books for, teaching you how to run a business and stuff, they're all anarcho-communists. They just are too pussyfooting around to tell you that because they're scared of what it's going to say. But when you're talking about delegating, that's an anarchist idea. Like when you're talking about caring for your employee, That is not a capitalist idea. That is a communist idea. When you're talking about, how these things run so that you can actually have time to take care of yourself and have the next big idea and all that stuff, that's an anarchist idea. I said, everybody agrees with it. They are just too hell-bent on, no, this is the box that it puts. So anyways, so at the panel, I brought it up. I said, guys, just so everybody knows here, I said, we're a small company. We're an anarchist communist organization. I said, so most of you are going to have some like, how the hell do we do this? Just so you know, these are the people you're asking. This is how it's going to happen. And Sean,
Most of the people on the panel were talking about how to incentivize a very large workforce and how to keep employees and where do they get their employees and how do they keep them from leaving. And it was not at all like, we didn't have a lot.
Yeah, as soon as you start talking about that you treat your business like a family, which I think is morally reprehensible, but as soon as you start talking about that, that is a communist idea. And so, we got done and I was like, oh, that probably went horribly. And then the guy who was heading the thing up, he came over, he was like, that was amazing. He was like, that was such a great take. And he's like, nobody is talking about these ideas and you're absolutely right. And anyways, he's like, I can't wait for the next one. And so we're walking out. This little guy, Sean is a very diminutive stature man, comes over and he just starts talking to us and just talking about this and that and what's going on and how do you run your business and this, that. I was really excited about the ideas that y'all were talking about. I think it's some great stuff. We didn't know this guy from Adam. And he's one of those guys, you ever run into those people you have a great conversation with, and then they have that perfect sense of self when they've had enough. They say, thank you for your time. And they just walk away. And you're like, something just happened. That's not a normal person because other people are people pleasing or it's very rude or whatever.
He definitely made an impression, which we followed up with when we got home.
Yeah. And as soon as we got done, the president of the Stairmakers Association came over and grabbed us. He's like, what was Sean talking to y'all about? And we're like, who the fuck's Sean? And he's like, the guy that y'all were just talking to. We told him that he was very interested in our business, was saying he was having trouble getting stuff built and he would like to talk to us. And the president of the SMA sort of looked at us just stone cold. He said, do not let him go. Whatever he wants, you do it. So talking to Sean after that, he sort of asked, he's like, I'd like to mentor y'all, and did a whole bunch of research about us, going back to your question about what business looks like. And one of the things that we had realized when we started working with him, because we weren't looking for a business mentor, that is the last thing we want, because we're running an anarcho-communist organization.
There are very few people that can talk to us about what we're doing.
Yeah, people don't get it. People don't, that is anathema to modern business. And so we're talking to Sean and realizing how our energies are not being put properly into all of their places, and things that we had early on, which was, one of our early mantras was capitalizing on other people's dormant assets. So
instead of getting a CNC, we rent
time on CNCs, knowing that people have things set up and are not always using their stuff. And so you can sleep there on the Saturday, but we can get in and use somebody's shop or something like that. So we would negotiate these sort of situations instead of having to make these big ticket purchases. So like, there's a big wide belt sander on the other side of the shop. We rarely use a wide belt sander, but when you're sanding 40 treads.
I don't want to own one. They're very fickle.
But, we've got a great situation where he basically does the upkeep on his machine. He takes care of it. He maintains it. We just buy a little bit of time, and then we don't have to have.
The same with a spray boot. We were lucky enough to find a shop that has the spray boots, so we don't have to have our own. We don't have to maintain it every day. But when we need to prime or paint something, we'll get access.
But how business, one of the things we're having to turn back to is we don't have to do everything, right? We've sort of fallen a little bit into this trap of to be able to get everything done on the level that we're trying to do and build our business and represent our business in the right way. We're sort of realizing that we need to be able to pull hands off. So Sean called us out on a job. We were bidding the first job for him. He goes, why are you going to build it this way? Build it this way. And I had to have a frank conversation with him. I said, in case you don't notice, I'm very upset right now. But I'm recognizing that in part is because I don't want to do what you're suggesting. I said, that's not anything you've done wrong. I'm just realizing that. And so I'm going to need a minute, and I'll have to talk to you tomorrow about my decision about this. And Katie and I talked to him. It's like, okay, he's got a better method. It's more efficient for this. It's repeatable. It's something I don't have to manage. It's something she doesn't have to manage. It's something we can put people on. And so...
And it's tried because he has 40 or 50 years in the business.
And so a lot of the stuff that we're in the middle of right now, so part of this anarchist thing is that there is no stone cold instantiated leader. So a pristine meritocracy is an anarchist system where whoever's got the best idea, run, you take it. And when you are in the sludge and you don't know what to do, well, whoever got the next best idea, pick up the ball and run.
And that is everything from building methods to should we take on this job? We involve right now it's employee, but we involve our employees in that conversation and we say, does this sound like something that you would want to do? And we weigh the pros and cons. Recently, we turned down a job fixing other people's work, and we had to say we'd actually rather be slow and maybe have smaller paychecks for a while than work with somebody else's mistakes and not leave the client with a bad taste in their mouth about us because it's not our.
We were going to have to charge 10 times the price to get half.
So we were going to be expensive and
poorly managed.
Yeah. And we brought him into that conversation. Like, you get a say in whether or not we do this job. Ultimately, if it's something that like we absolutely need to do, we'll bring that. But we sort of extend those conversations down to little things like, what sort of tooling should we do?
But as we end up in situations where there's different stuff going on, to be able to say, you know what, I'm out, right? I've got some physical health stuff. I'll be available if y'all need me, but I'm not the center right now. And so part of this mentality is you've got to prepare everybody to be the center.
Anyone can pick up the ball if it's set down.
Right. And so it's not only that you prepare them, but everybody has to be personally responsible, working on their own ship, working on their own life so that they can take the ball, right? And everybody's not going to do it the same way and whatever else. But what that allows is Katie had some health issues last year that allowed her to be able to step aside and the business to keep going. I had some health issues, allowed me to step aside and Katie and Sal to keep things going. We have other resources and people that we can help, get help from. We still haven't figured out how to get help with the bidding process because the stuff we're bidding is never just, hey, it's the same as the one before.
Never the
same. It's always pages upon pages of.
Even if it's an
horrible drawing,
an elliptical stair that we just bid an elliptical stair, the details, everything is so different, every single job.
So some of some stuff we haven't figured out how to be able to enact this stuff in. Some stuff lives in my head, and as much as but then again, there's my personal responsibility. I got to figure out how to get out of my head. Katie's got to figure out how to get stuff out of her head, and we've got to be able to figure out how to, so yeah. What's business like? It's, I was going to say that is what it sounds like. Anarchist communists.
I forget the question.
What's the big vision for the company? For Hammer and Bell you're growing, you're expanding. How big does it get? How many employees are you staying in this location? Do you have multiple locations? How do you service? Do you want to service the whole U.S.? Do you want to service beyond the country?
These are interesting questions, and I think we will probably answer them differently. And it also kind of depends on the day. Right now, measured growth is a thing that I have to keep reminding ourselves. Moving to this shop was a huge, I know compared to a lot of people's wood shops, this is still a very small shop. We don't have brand new state-of-the-art equipment. We actually like older equipment, but we're trying to do measured growth because we see a lot of companies get a little momentum, and then next thing you know, they've got 2 CNCs and they've got 20,000 square feet and 100 employees, and that's a lot to manage. Right now, measured growth, I would say we would like to service the entire U.S., mostly because we feel like we're too busy to travel because of work. So if we travel for work, we've traveled more for work than I think either of us have, for the most of our lives. Like I said, it kind of depends on the day. Some days we would say like a 10-person team, maybe 20-person team, depending on the work. Other days it's like one day I'm a huge outfit where we're not just doing carpentry, we're doing all the trades and we're doing them in-house, and they're all training with each other because the trades used to talk. Mm-hmm. Trades used to work together and they used to talk, and now they don't. Everything is so separated that everyone is doing work to fix other people's work. And so some days it's like, I would love to have, a big team where people are learning everything from framing to drywall to masonry and et cetera. But I think a more realistic goal is maybe like a 10-person team at some point. What would you say?
So I'm, about 10 to 20. And the reason being is I really found a love for teaching, above and beyond doing. I remember a time in my life where that would have been like, that would have gagged me to think about, like, if you can teach it, then just do cool shit. But the thing that I have learned is to get out of the center. I find a lot more joy not being the hub, but just sort of being a spoke on a wheel. And so one of the things that sort of we talked about with Sean is sort of a tiered business. So for as much as it's a lot of fun to do all of the craziest shit, having a business that does the craziest shit and some upper level normal shit.
Especially skill builders.
Yeah. So skill builder jobs, which is what we call them. So the 2 jobs that we've got right now, we're on our skill builder jobs. They're not intended to be a flex. They're intended to reinforce those embodied skills, to grow your vocabulary, to see if you can just, sometimes punch a clock, right? Those different ways of being in the world that we sort of neglect because we're more inclined to focus on this sort of bon vivant lifestyle, right? Where we're just coming in when we want and doing what we want and, hang a couple of pieces of trim and then go home and, live it up and stay in the hammock. And it's like, well, okay. But how do you know that that's the life that you want if you've never tried the other? How do you know if you've never seen and worked hard enough to see the virtues in the other grinding lifestyle and see, okay, here is the good and the bad. And so therefore I will now jettison the whole thing because I don't like the good, I don't like the bad, regardless of the good. And so those skill builder jobs are really the ones that have been squished by the last 20 to 30 years of capitalism really grinding into trade.
Sort of factory work.
Yeah, where it's just, you see all these people who do houses, who do stairs for houses that are in the $5 million range. And the stairs are just whipped up by, trim carpenters who, God bless them, they do fantastic work. But they don't know what to do with. They don't know stairs. And, to be able to say to those people like, hey, have some more pride in yourself. It's not just about can you do something, but should you be doing it? And if you can and you should and you want to be doing it, then learn something. Don't just do something, right? So often we get stuck in this place in life where we're just constantly doing. We don't realize there's an evolution of self that ought to be, in my opinion, in the center of the whole thing. And so doing those skill builders where we can bring people in, teach them the right way to do that, but also encourage them to live a more circumspect life, a life that is beyond just the grinding of the trades that everybody gets into, a life that has more dignity in it than just hammering pieces of wood, or shooting a nail gun. So to be able to transmit our worldview and allow ourselves also to be open to be evolving, but to these people who would be lower skilled people, and then have a talent pool to pull out for these.
Well, and to speak to some of that skill building and teaching, and also that grand idea of like having all the trades learn from each other, sort of speaks to some of our original business plan, which was like build beautiful things, change the world, modest gold, and leave the trades better than we found it. Because so many people want to say nobody wants to work anymore, nothing is being built right anymore, and we can all talk about that, but unless we're putting our money where our mouth is and doing something about that and try to not only do quality work for ourselves, but teaching other people how they can do quality work, then we're just adding to the problem. So,
and one of our mantras is beauty gets beauty, right? That's an old philosophical idea that beautiful things in the world create more beautiful things of the world, right? And when I have something beautiful in my life, a beautiful picture, a beautiful piece of art, beautiful album, right? When I listen to that, that brings beauty into me and then brings beauty out of me, right? When I listen, look at the most crass incident, right? You put on a great album, what are you doing? You're dancing around the house. You're in a better mood and this, that, and the other.
And when you watch the Real Housewives, only negative things come out.
Right. But that beauty extends and it's this modest way in what is seemingly to become more and more of an ugly world that you can beautify the world is by just putting beauty out for no other reason than to put it out. And so by doing all of this, we're putting beauty, our goal is not just a beauty in the hands and heads and hearts of billionaires, right, who currently don't really want to share that beauty with the rest of the world, but to be able to put it in the hands and hearts of and minds of normal people who are actually in our community, in our neighborhood, who we might see the results of that beauty growing in them. So
Deep thoughts.
deep thoughts at Jack Ham.
With Jack Bassett.
Deep thoughts with Jack Hammer.
Oh.
I was actually going to be a character when one of my early YouTube attempts was Jack Hammer. I was going to be a character in the show.
Nice.
My alter ego. But I've often asked people what their biggest hurdle has been getting to where they are, but I'm curious, what's your favorite failure?
Oh my gosh. It could be the business. Eventually. We don't know where this is going. Yeah, cut that part out. No. Favorite failure. I'll say one of my favorite ones is also one of my least favorite ones. I have a project that haunts me. I built parts of a window sash wrong. Part of the meeting rail. I built wrong, and my boss at the time didn't want me to take the time to I caught the mistake after I'd milled the stuff, but it was like I was gonna have to remake 15 parts, maybe 10, and it was gonna cost time and money, and so we altered them to be able to work. And it haunts me. I think about because it also haunted me. Everyone that saw the windows were like, this piece of, there's something off about like people were pointing out, the guys that installed them were pointing it out. And I'm like, I know. I wanted to fix my mistake.
The audacity to
I had
tell her
I had to
mistake.
deflect
She's
the
like,
moment.
actually, it's that asshole.
Well, I mean, it was my mistake, but it still haunts me, and I think about it frequently because it reminds me to take the time to go back and redo things, and that does cost money, and they may not have been in a position to do that, and so I can't really fault them for that decision. I still made functional, beautiful windows that didn't exist before I built them, and they're probably fine. But it does remind me to, like, when you know something's wrong, to take the time to fix it. And I think about that frequently of, like, there have been times where we've milled a large amount of lumber that we can then use for something else, but we see movement in the lumber that is like, this is not going to be good for this application. Or I can't think of another example, but that's what's coming to mind right now, where it's like, we need to get more lumber and remill this. And we'll say that we're not going to waste that lumber, but we're going to pick some better material that's going to yield a better product, so that when we check up on these in a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, they are still functioning correctly, and we still give a quality product that we can stand by. So, I don't know, that's the one that comes to mind right now.
What was the question?
Save or failure.
Other than life, other than the epic failures that in the business exclusively.
Oh yeah, I guess that wasn't in this era of my woodworking career.
But you did reference how it affects how you work now.
I still answered correctly, man. Thanks.
In the business, every job we do is a colossal failure.
It's the first stair that you did.
Oh, shut up.
Interesting.
What's the name of that job? I can't. You know what I'm talking about with Jim?
Yeah.
That should be what.
Shut. We don't need to bring out that on that shit.
There's a lot of, like, we did a favor or a publicity job that ended up costing a lot of time and money and heartache.
So, one of the big misconceptions about working on the level that we work on, and I've talked about it on my Instagram before, is that you get things that people on this level are always getting everything right? That it's just every motion, it's every motion, from pulling your tools off the truck to setting up to there's no energy lost. You could do a fucking audit and everything is just going to be millions of, efficient little micro moments. And I tried to be that woodworker for a long time. Oh my God, I tried to be that guy. And
I can't even picture you being that.
yeah, you met me when I was a drug addict. I was like, yeah, burn that guy. And it's not only disingenuous and inhumane, it's just a bald-faced lie.
You're saying to live that kind of, like, I'm a well-oiled machine and I make no mistakes.
To live a life that even hopes that you don't make a mistake, right? That even hopes that you're going to get to a point where you don't make mistakes. Warren Buffett one time made the quote, said, if you're batting 1,000, then you're playing in the minor leagues. And that really stuck with me because I always wanted this illusion of perfection. And it was based on this insurmountable fear and inadequacy as a human being. And I remember that job you're talking about was a monstrosity of just chaos and everything.
Mind you, this is the first job that he took on when he's like, start your own business. I'm like, if it's so easy, you do it. And he's like, okay, come on. And then we're working 16-hour days.
I've been in
I've
been in the industry in Charleston long enough that all I got to do is make a phone call and I can get a job. Now, whether that job will pay, whether that job will be death or not, I know so many people. I could start. I mean, I guarantee you in 8 hours, I could have several jobs, none of which I want to do, but I could easily, because I just know all these people.
You are a big man on camp. I know all the people.
And so this job,
We don't need to get into it.
this job was going horrifically, and I was only a few months sober at the time, and it was going so badly. I mean, so badly that I left Seabrook. I left Seabrook, and I was like, I'm going to start calling people. If I don't get somebody by the time I get to Main Road, I'm getting shit-faced. I'm going to have the most epic DUI in this town. And I started calling people. Nobody answered. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to get plastered. Last person I called picked up. And he said, what's going on? And I just started unloading. Just one of those just data dump vomit sessions of just everything that was going wrong. And he goes, huh, that sounds real hard. He says, these people know you're human? And I was like, the fuck did you just say to me? Did they know that I'm human? He said, it sounds like you're trying to be perfect. And that sounds really hard. And then he said, that sounds impossible. And it hit me. My whole life, I had this impossible standard. And I hated everybody on a job site. I would burn a job site down if I split a piece of wood. I mean, I would lose my mind if the electrician was in my way, whatever.
He loses his mind marginally less now.
Yeah, marginally less. Improvement. But no, and what it helped me realize was, because the next question he asked me is, what are you so fucking afraid of? And I realized that whole thing about I have to be perfect, I have to be the best, I have to be was this response based on this fear. And this fear for me was, oh, I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to get paid. I'm going to, end up homeless under an overpass. I'm going to, what are the worst things in my mind? And since then, one of the big things that I have really internalized is just how many failures and problems and mistakes we do on every job. Oh, we forgot to bid this in the job. Oh, we forgot to include that. Or, oh, I mean, I got a piece of wood laying over there. 2 weeks of wood.
And carving.
Yeah, 2 weeks of labor. Because I got rushed to make the newel for the Wyoming job. And I had forgotten one of the key points of my layout. And so I have 2 weeks of work sitting over there, beautiful handrail section that I now show to clients and say, this is how we built our handrails. Well, why do you have this left over? Because I have fucked up royally. I wasted 2 weeks, trying to hustle to get this mocked up. And then
So we did not. We definitely didn't have.
Yeah. And the thing is each one of those mistakes, if I'm honest, they only get to me because I take myself too seriously. Because I take myself to be some perfection. I take myself to be some God among men. I take myself to be whatever. And so when those things bother me, this resulted thing, it comes pretty quick. Typically when I tell Katie and she says, oh, you sorry. I get this realization of, oh my God, I'm taking myself too seriously. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to pretend like nobody knows I'm human. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to pretend that everybody thinks that I'm the most epic person in the world, or I'm this, that, and the other. Then I go look at technical stairhead stuff and I realize that I am not the most epic.
Well, what makes it also really frustrating to get through to him is that Jack is almost always right perfect in his work. And I hesitate to inflate his head more than it needs to be, more than it already is, but I don't know many people that hit the mark as frequently and precisely as he does on almost everything. So when he does make a mistake and it's like we have to redo part of a drawing, or we have to redo, that was a decent size mistake, but it wasn't the stairs don't fit in the hole size mistake. When he does make a mistake, it's so hard to get through to him and remind him, like, dude, you're batting at 99.9 already.
But that's the thing, is this evolution of self where I'm more concerned about being a holistic human than I am about being a perfect consummate craftsperson. And so those mistakes, those errors are those moments where I look up and I realize I've been looking at, staring at my damn feet for so long that, yes, I know what my feet look like, but I forgot that there's a whole wide world around me. And so one of the things Katie does, one of the things Sal does, one of the things other people in my life do to help me realize, so like, all right, step away from it. Go the fuck home. Take a shower. Watch some cartoons.
Lay down on the floor. That's one of his good.
Lay down on the floor. Like,
that grounds him.
Go stare out at the woods, and all of a sudden I realize and I remember I'm a human. And so those mistakes, those problems, those failures are the things that remind me that I'm here not to become the world's consummate craftsman, but the best human that I could be.
And the client never sees those. Like, we don't look at pictures of that Wyoming job and think about the 2 weeks lost on that hand. Like, when we were in the moment, I had to keep reminding him of, when we're looking back on this job, we're not going to remember these moments. We're going to remember, and the clients are going to remember that they're happy with the product. And so we have to kind of stay present. And now, what's the opposite of future trivia? Sort of future, I don't know, daydream of the positive, I guess.
And what's the biggest challenges moving forward right now with where you want to take it?
People.
Time, money, energy, architects,
Builders.
Next year's going to be a real big challenge for us because we have a lot of really exciting, large jobs in the making if they come through. But we're also going to be needing to move to a new shop. And so timing that is going to be really challenging. I think trying to balance how much, like, if everybody says yes to all the feelers we're putting out, if everybody says yes, which they won't, not everyone always says yes, but we're going to have to get selective or make a decision to get more help, which we may have to do both.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of the snatching the tablecloth off the table and leaving the color. We're at a situation where we've both got to snatch the tablecloth plus set the table plus get the tablecloth back underneath.
All while nobody notices.
All while cooking food and preparing a meal, and so and pay those. So it's one of those situations where you're not sure which domino needs to fall. And so basically, we're doing that very hard human thing, which is not trying to keep our head where our feet are.
Yeah, we're trying to slow down. And
yeah, like you can make a lot of mistakes when you've been too fast. So
we've taken some jobs out of fear. We've taken a lot of jobs out of fear, and we price jobs out of fear. And that's one of the things that we're going to work on, because if we don't get the job, then what are we going to do? But also, if you get the job,
that box you in,
and you don't ask for enough money on the job, then you're going broke working, 60-hour weeks. So it's a hard balance of not taking a job or pricing a job out of fear, but also keeping all the plates spinning. So I don't know that we have the right answer for that.
How do you balance the craftsmanship side with the monetary side? Because you got to keep the lights on, pay your bills, and hopefully have some sort of retirement when you're too old to be doing the stuff. But then, you want to be making it right, fixing the mistakes, and at what point, how do you make those decisions?
So Jack actually had a really sort of aha moment. What was it like last year? We used to do everything ourselves, down to resawing, the lumber, making our own veneers, gluing up, hand selecting all the material for the treads, and we were lucky enough to find a good quality, reliable supplier, but we've taken sort of a turn away from having to have our hands in everything. And it was kind of hard for me to let go. Like, well, if we're ordering tread panels instead of gluing them up ourselves, even if they're quality and we couldn't have done them better, it's like, well, did we really do this work? But then I had to step back and I'm like, there's no, the masons don't make their own bricks. Like, I had to kind of get myself a reality check. And Jack had the point of customers don't really care if we glued up the tread. They do get a bit of romanticism out of we hand carved the handrail, or we put details in here and there that we labored over with block planes and chisels and spoke shaves. And there is some romanticism in there, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about the treads. So we did start outsourcing some of the areas where it was like, okay, that takes us a lot of time. We can order really high quality veneers and not make them ourselves. That saves us so much time and labor. So we've taken some things like that where we outsource to both help with production, but we maintain the craft in the areas where we know it will really shine and cow. So you want to speak to that at all? I kind of took your idea and spoke for you.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a terrible business person.
We might be the wrong people to interview about it.
So I am pathologically a terrible business person.
But getting better.
If you want the world's greatest staircase for free, just tell me I can't do it, and I will do it to spite you.
But kind of like that gate that I made us build. I was sort of day shifting for a company running the business, but I was also doing some day work, and a client had ordered a gate and the gate fell apart. And it was this delicate conversation with the woodworker to be like, hey, what can we do about this?
Your gate fell apart.
And his response was, well, it can't be done. A gate like that can't, the joints opened up. There was no glue on the tenons.
It's like half inch.
There were a lot of
styles there.
A lot of things that were making that gate fail. And he was like, and it had 2 strap hinges. And he was like, a gate like that can't be built and hinged that way.
Possible.
And so I was like, Jack, we're building a gate because this guy told me it couldn't.
I was like, what's the budget? She's like, oh, he did it for $800. So
no, it was more than that, but it was definitely,
it's like a 60-inch gate.
We lost money. It was a very large gate, but
I have like this inlaid metal medallion and stuff. I'm like, hey. She's like, well, they didn't have the account, the money, and I want to show this motherfucker that he's full of shit.
And the hinges, I know how to buy. These are strap hinges, which each hinge was like 400 or 500 pounds. So like, there's this gate maybe weighed 100 pounds at most. Like, so yeah, we built that gate, and it's still hanging.
Still immaculate.
It's fine.
Years ago. But no, I mean, I have this social defect where I don't care about money. I care about having enough money to do what I want to do now. So if I want to go out to dinner after the
Ready for our future.
yeah. There you go.
Yep.
I'm not responsible for our finances. No, but it's one of the reasons I talked about earlier when you were asking about sort of how we became the craftsmen that we were. You know how there's people who just naturally don't feel pain? And it's like, oh my gosh, they can do some crazy stuff. And it's like, yeah, because they have this genetic defect that they're
Is that real?
die from. Yeah, there are people who cannot feel pain. And so like they'll break limbs or they'll overheat and like because their body won't cool themselves properly. I am one of those people that money has always been just like, oh, what the fuck is this thing? Like, okay, you tell me I need this, but if I don't have it in my bank, okay, I don't care.
And if you have more than you need, you're just giving it away.
Yeah. And so when it comes to the sacrifices that a lot of people, and that's why I didn't want to be disingenuous with that other question, when it comes to the sacrifices a lot of other people have had to make to become a craftsman or looking at what it takes to become a craftsman, if I say to you, work 100-hour week, carving wood, you're going to say, well, I physically can't. I financially can't. I have family. I had no problem wrecking my family. I had no problem wrecking my life. I had no problem wrecking my finances to do all this stuff, which then allowed me to do this next step. And so when it's like, how does the craftsmanship and the capitalism and how do all these things marry up? I mean, Katie will tell you, like, there will be times where I've got like a digit hanging on and, I haven't slept in 3 days and, I'm frantically hands shaking, like eyes, pupils the size of marbles.
We're doing that less these days.
Where I will continue to keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
And people will just stand, like Sal and Katie will just stand there like, what do you want us to do? And, I'm laying on the floor like, I got this thing figured out. I've got the fucking divine madness. I've got to keep going. I've got it seen now and I can finish it up. We're doing better. Part of me dealing with, my, radical self-responsibility and this whole atheist communist thing. Part of this is I have to learn this about myself. So part of this is I realize I can't control this sort of work, what most people would label this sort of workaholicness. I can't control that. And so I have to get out of that, right? Just like an alcohol shouldn't go to a bar. And so there's a lot of these things where I'm getting to the place where it's like, okay, Sal, Katie, here's this stuff. I've got to download it out of my brain because I've got this vision for it. And so we've got to figure out how to get it out or not do it. Because like that crazy mule for Wyoming, the whole reason we did that was because my dumbass sold the idea for free. And that was 6,000 hours.
We do that frequently when we're like, we're going to add a little extra special touch, but it's always like for free. We're going to personalize it for free. And then it's like, yeah, a lot.
I mean, that mule was like 6,000 hours and I just threw it in. And Katie's like, the fuck did you just do? It's like
6,500 hours.
Yeah. I mean, and so, granted, it looked really cool. And, part of me used to lie to myself and say, oh, well, somebody will see that, want us to do it. Nobody wants a $70,000, $80,000 newel for a staircase. Nobody wants that. The homeowner in Wyoming didn't even want that. They thought it was cool afterwards, but nobody wants that. And so, part of it is me having to get out of that, realize checks and balances. And so one of the things about working with Sean is Sean just smiles and laughs and moves right along. And, so we're giving him our designs, right? He can, get the money for it. He can do the stuff. And so a lot of it is learning to listen to Katie better. And there are certain things that she has to listen to me about when she's like, well, she
Click.
lets me think she's listening to me about. but where I have to listen to a lot of people and who are saying, hey, you're self-destructing. You're not doing healthy things. You're not thinking about your retirement. You're not thinking about, the next step. So that whole thing about building that stair a different way that we talked about a minute ago, part of that was a conversation Katie and I had to talk about later was that's going to be part of our retirement is when we have processes that don't live and die with you, that you can teach them to other people, that you can export them to other, blah, blah, blahs. That is a good thing. And so get your head out of your ass, really do some soul searching. It's not bad craftsmanship. It's not a problem. I just don't like it.
Well, we had to make one of those decisions recently. Just the other day, we were talking about with the stair we're working on now, a construction method that's like used in boat building. And yes, it would have been strong and amazing, but it was hours and hours of complex work that I let Jack go through the gamut, and I had to be like, this, I have to chime in and say, this isn't needed for this job. It's not really going to add anything structurally. We don't have the time or money in the job. And while we would love to go every job, we want to go above and beyond and do extra and kill ourselves doing, that's not making us money. It's not making us happy all the time. So I had to say, if you really want this, we could talk about it some more, but I think we should move away from doing this really complex boat building style monolithic stringer glue up and just do the simpler method. No one's asking us to be, this extra version of unseen. Nobody's ever going to see that work. So that was kind of a hard call. It was hard for me to be like, hey, we're going in the wrong direction a little bit here.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I never...
It was a cool idea, though.
I never got. So this is my 5th business. And I...
This is like your 3rd.
Okay, so...
Well, you don't want to get to your point.
No, but one of the things that I did was I ruined those relationships with those other people. Other partners that I had, and I ran everything ragged in large part because I couldn't listen to anybody.
Being unmovable.
Yeah, I was unmovable. I had this idea about what this is, what craftsmanship is, what one business is, what, is going to be good for this, what is going to be good for that. And everything that I ever took a principled moral stance on, this is do or die, it never mattered. Never once did anybody give 2 shakes about it. And that's one of the things, because I'm growing as a human, that I've learned with Katie, not just because she's my wife, but because she's brilliant and she's very capable and she has the skills to be able to speak authoritatively on what's going on. And just to be able to say, all right, I don't like it. But then I've also gotten other people, other communities. George Ricci up in Main Stair Company. I call him every once in a while, Laura, and he'll call me and be like, "And what's this idea? What's this thing? I'm trying to do this, or this happened, and I'm not sure that this is what I want to do." I'll call technical stairhead, Matt Kennedy, and I'll be like, "Matt, this is, sort of the direction that I'm thinking, and this is sort of where we're going." And, he'll just answer honestly, "Yeah, that's not the life that I want. Why are you doing that?" And it's just like, I have this whole group of people around me that I go to, not necessarily all high people that I just worship, not all low people that I can step all over, but people from all over who give different voices from different positions and can, at some point, somebody cracks the nut.
Well, with that, I'm curious, what's the best advice that you've gotten towards business, and what's the worst advice?
We've gotten a lot of well-meaning advice, but not great advice, because it's like I said earlier, there's not many people that we can talk to about what we're trying to do. If they have a woodworking business, they're trying to do something way beyond what we're trying to do, or they're trying to be, I don't know, more factory capitalist. I don't know how to really explain it, but we're trying to do something and still hang on to a quality of life. And so there are very few people that we can call. A family friend that owns a business in Ohio, Nate Sublet, he did give me, I call him every once in a while, and he always tells me I don't give advice. I can tell you what I did. I made a lot of mistakes. But I don't believe that what I have to say is advice. But he did tell me that you need to find time while running your business to work on your business. And that's a very difficult thing. At the time, it felt like bad advice because we had no time. There was no time. Every day we were working so many hours all day, every day. But as we are getting to the point where we are actually doing that, I'm seeing that was some of the best advice because it'll get away from you. And it's this snowball that keeps going. And we're still very much sometimes in that snowball, gaining momentum, not always in good ways, but we are taking steps to get consultation where we need it and look in, revisit, okay, we've been doing things this way. Is this the best way? Just like we were saying before we started this, with this dust collector, after this, our next shop, you may say, okay, we tried that, but that might not be the best way. Or with how we're bidding, we're communicating with clients. I recently was talking about how some clients want that romance, that wine and dine, and some people don't have the time and they just want facts down and dirty. They don't want 6 Zoom calls and meet and greets and all of the above and beyond. They want to be communicated with in a different way. So we have to be flexible. I don't know about bad advice. Probably to get our van wrapped with our business logo. And I'm going to say that's bad advice because we cannot advertise the same way other small businesses can, because we will get calls from a lot of people outside of we're like, yeah, we probably could fix your antique armoire. Yeah, we can frame a deck, but that's not really what we do. And we tried there for a while at the beginning, and we got a lot of calls for unrelated type work. And I've been run off the road by a lot of labeled vans and work trucks, and I remembered them. So, I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of as far as bad advice right now. What about you?
So, best advice was actually not about business per se. When I was 19, I was in music school, and one of my professors had a quote plastered on his door that said, it was by James Taylor, and is an advice to musicians. And his advice to musicians was avoid a major drug habit, keep your overhead low, and take your music out constantly for people to hear. They need to hear it, and you need them to hear it. And so that's one that's sort of one of these mantras that goes in my head all the time.
Now, this is the only business of all the businesses you've had where you've avoided a major drug problem.
Yes. But no, there's a lot of wisdom to that, and especially this idea at the end of it, that it's like, it's not about business, it's about get your shit out there, build community. Like, you need people to see your work, and they need to see your work. And when I started Instagram, it was right on the tail end of that, where people were putting their work up and people were asking for input and advice, and it wasn't all just these, hot takes reels and bullshit that's all over Instagram now. Oh God, I sound like an old man. talking shit about Instagram. I apologize.
Yep.
But no, this idea like that it's okay to show off, that it's okay. I mean, if you played any music, right? You learn a new song on the guitar, right? Is it show off? Are you an asshole for saying, hey, honey, check out this new song, or hey, buddy, I just learned this new song.
No, because you need community. Everybody needs community.
Right. But in woodworking, well, you're just a fucking show off, right? Why are you showing this off? How, you show off something on your Instagram page that isn't 100% tried and true, or you haven't, people are scared of you, right? What are you going to get? You're going to get 500 comments about, so-and-so should have been this, that, and the other, and you should have been doing this, and you should have used, what kind of screws are you using? The pitch on those screws is wrong, and just so much bullshit, right?
But also every post we share, we both get, I don't know, a dozen or more people asking us how we did something and for further information.
Because we've cultivated it.
Yeah.
You for years have very diligently cultivated a following. Me, for the few years I've been on there, I just tell people in no uncertain terms periodically, you can go fuck yourself. Like, if you want to come at me, you better come at me hard because I'll take you to the ditch.
But you help people more than you tell people to go.
Right, because for a while I was getting people that were all nasty and shit, and I didn't want that, because what happens is when you have nasty people in your feed, you lose all the good people who would like to send them, right? Because it's no longer a safe place for them, because they're scared they're going to get caught up. And so, on my feeds, for the most part, pretty much universally, I mean, in the last few years, nobody gets out of line.
Almost always positive.
And so people come up and they say, well, how do you do this? What can you do this? And so, I build these relationships. But the whole thing about it's not just, the void, big overhead. That's a big one. Avoid a major drug habit, but that has layers too. But that building community, because people need it. And that generosity, that other-centric part of it, that is not just about us. As far as bad advice, the only bad business advice I've ever heard is advice that wasn't meant for me. It was given by people who just didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. And there was a time where I thought, because they were talking to me, that it was something for me. And that's not the case. Just because somebody's talking at you doesn't mean you need to take anything they have to say. Like, if it's clear that they don't understand the vision that you had, if it's clear, that they don't have any self-awareness and and they just, it's okay. You can spit up a little bit and be on your way, even this isn't for me, but anything that I've ever heard that has actually been for me has been fantastic advice. Don't always know what to do with it.
Especially when you're starting a business. Yeah, a lot of people have a lot of things when you're first starting, and then when you start getting like some decent momentum. People have a lot to say and a lot of unsolicited advice, and especially starting out, you have to figure out what you want. And it's hard though, because you don't know, if you never run a business and if you're a woodworker and not a business major first, you may not have the full picture, and it's hard to not listen to those things because you assume somebody older or that has had a business might know more than you, but every business is different. And I feel like everybody was very well-meaning at the beginning, but they gave us a lot of misplaced advice. Not bad advice, just misplaced.
If I give a supplemental good piece of advice.
Yeah.
So when I talked earlier about going to my lawyer about the
contract
for guy building shit, so the only reason I had a lawyer was because he was a drinking buddy of another friend of mine. And so he just happened to, I got invited out one night, and so he just sort of gave me a card. He was like, hey, I do construction law, whatever.
Yeah, that's how you met him.
That's how I met Alex Junku. It's awesome.
He's an amazing lawyer.
He's an amazing lawyer. He doesn't get ripped. But no. And so the only reason I went to a lawyer, every other time I had run businesses, I did not have a lawyer. I did not have an accountant. I did not have those things. And it made shit so hard. My lawyer, our contract cost us like $500. Our incorporation stuff cost a couple $100.
We've had some other stuff, but we've had to pay for. But
we had some modifications that we added that were specialized to the
But
stairs.
it also saved us from a very, that one contract that was like, we can kick you off the job and seize the money that we owe you to sue you with.
Gosh, yeah.
We're like,
They had a subcontractor agreement where basically
it's very long. We would have missed it.
We gave it to our lawyer to read, and he said, "Do you realize here that it says they can throw you off the job for any reason, and withhold any funds and earmark them for the purposes of suing you directly?" And he said, "This is the equivalent. This is the legal equivalent of your big brother sitting on your chest, taking your hand and punching you in the face with it."
No, that was just a blanket subcontractor agreement. This company had I think it was driven by their insurance company, and they didn't even know it was in there.
The contractor didn't know it was in there.
No,
We brought it up.
never come up.
The contractor said, "Forget about it. Don't sign this." Wow. But to have legal representation, to be able to have somebody to talk to on this stuff, again, it was relatively, in the grand scheme of things, nominal. I mean, we've been in business for 5 years, and so roughly $1,000 all in on contract revisions and stuff. $1,000 for 5 years. But also, he's advised us on, okay, you're getting into jobs that are $500,000 and up. You need to get construction insurance. You need to get this. You need to take care of this. You need to, and take care of these other situations. Like, we've had so many comments from contractors about how professional we are because of our contract. Like, that our contract has the draw schedules wind up, that our contract has, so that everybody knows everything. Everything's clearly lined out. Everything's easy to read. Like, he set us up on DocuSign, so we don't have to run around to get contracts signed. Everything's taken care of. And then he set us up with an accountant. And he said, because you're this type of LLC, you're going to need to be doing your taxes this way. And and so to have all that stuff taken care of has been, because that sinking feeling when you have a contract issue, or the sinking feeling when you have a draw issue.
Yeah, I'll be doing a solo podcast about that eventually once I've gathered my thoughts around the experience.
Yeah, but I mean, he got us set up with QuickBooks, like
all stuff that we could have done, but it's a lot to start a business and do all the things that he does. There's still a million other things to keep the saws going and the things being made. It did help to have that extra service. Plus, he's got us set up sort of protecting our business brand. He's advised us on different things with that.
So basically we do business as Competent Stairworks and Joinery, which is my business. And then basically he said, you want to keep Katie's business separate, no legal documentation for her business, because
They're more of a brand.
So if there's ever any liability issues, the liability is taken care of on this ugly ass name you've got over here.
And the brand's never tarnished.
Yeah. And so we hope this never happens. We don't anticipate it happening, but you hear of clients taking people to court over stuff or tarnishing a business name. And it's like, well, that's the business that would have to fold if anything bad happened, but the brand would be maintained. Or if we ever want to evolve and change the business, it's
windy.
That's really
an interesting way to approach it. At first I didn't understand it, but
sounds like a good person to have on the team. So get a good business lawyer on the team, and
an accountant, definitely.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
Construction lawyer specifically.
Well, I'm going to say it's going to seem really easy and redundant, but the workers' comps and liability audits, to just be able to email the accountant, he's laughing because it's such, all they're asking for is simple information, but
She's
they're,
been at it for like 6 months, and every time she gets done, she's like, I finished it. And then another thing that comes back, please send this information again.
and it's
I
not
sent the same damn information 3 times.
or it's slightly altered. It's like, actually, we need from 7/15/2024 to 7/15/2025. And then I'll send that and they're like, no, we need 7/1/25. I'm like, it's, yeah, an accountant's been helpful.
Well, with that idea of having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and partnerships can be hard. As you've mentioned, burning bridges, and I've experienced my own challenges of partnerships in the past. What's the value of this partnership that you guys have? I see a lot of bouncing ideas off of each other, working through challenges. It's hard to do when you're solo. It's hard to have a discussion and come to a point that you can say this is the right way to move forward when you're only having a conversation with yourself.
It is. We have a lot of people comment on how they're sort of envious that we have each other to bounce these things off of. We also complement each other in the ways that, like, sometimes, I'm not going to be a risk taker and we need to take a risk. And sometimes he's going to be the risk taker and we need to quiet down the risks. The other thing is, we don't, it's not a secret, but we don't advertise that we're a couple and we're married. But we weren't always. We worked well together as coworkers and friends for years before we were romantically inclined, and we complemented each other's pace, and we had I feel like woodworkers that work together for a while get sort of an unspoken rhythm where we developed that pretty early on. One thing that people, somebody recently was asking me advice for what they should do, and I was like, all the advice I was given I couldn't recreate. I didn't inherit my dad's business. I didn't already have a shop to work in. I didn't have a super lucrative day job where I could just do this on the side. But then I realized when I was given that, I'm like, I also have a thing that most people can't recreate, is the partnership with Jack, who's now my husband. But at the time, we started out as friends, and then we were just dating when we started the business. And that is, unfortunately, not a thing everyone can recreate. But I feel like finding not your opposite, but somebody that complements your natural inclinations and questions you, and somebody that you can get that sort of unspoken communication and rhythm with. Yeah. What do you think? Wait, what was the question? Did I answer the question right? Okay.
The value of partnership, of your type of partnership.
Partner.
Business.
Tax purposes.
So in most ways, I am the world's worst person to ask about partnerships. I have mangled them thoroughly in the past. I partnered with 2 of my mentors, and I did a number on both of them.
Should I be worried that it's taking him this long to think about the benefits of being my partner?
Well, no. I mean, the obvious, the benefit. So part of it's hard. The benefit of being a partner with you is you are steady, you are skilled, you are a good improviser, and you are a good clutch. By that meaning, when you're driving a clutch and you basically have to think for any reason, right? You're not just ripping down the road. You got to think for any reason. What do? You put in the clutch. It's not the brakes. It's not the accelerator. It's just a pause. It's just, okay, we're coasting. We're not really burning anything. But we're just going to take a second and go. It's very hard to be a clutch. It's really easy to be a brakes and just slam on, stop everything and freak out. It's real easy to
Which
be
I do
gas.
too sometimes.
I'm really good at being the gas, except for the fact that I don't just put the gas in the engine. I cover the whole car in gas and then light it on fire. We're going down the road as a fireball. But Katie is an excellent clutch. She's just, okay, we're going to pause here. She's, of course, going to rib me at the same time. You dumb motherfucker, what have you gotten us into?
That's my marital right.
But she's the consummate clutch. That no matter what I'm going through, I don't feel like she's being a Debbie Downer when she says, okay, we're going to pause here, right? That's a really hard thing to do, is to put the pause on somebody who's excited and, running around like a kid. Put a pause on and not be resented for that, not be treated like, oh, you're a buzzkill, you're messing up my momentum. So, I mean, there's infinite benefits in.
You also need somebody in, whether it's within yourself or your partnership, you need somebody that is the gas and the risk taker. Our biggest job of our career, we would never have gotten, we would have never agreed to or even gotten deep in the conversations if it weren't for the gas that Jack brings, which is, daring and risk-taking and exciting, because I can be kind of a little too cautious, a bit of a scaredy cat. I'm like, that sounds like a lot to manage. And so I very much need somebody to say, yeah, but what if we did that? Like, what if we could do it? Like, okay.
If you're not gonna, if your primary objective is not to already be working on yourself, sort of like trying to find a partner in life, right? If you're not already working on yourself and you're just going out saying, hey, who wants to hook up for the night? It's like, probably it's going to be wreaking some havoc, but
you just put two good woodworkers together.
Trust me, you cannot do that. But I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, I genuinely want a partner.
Who do I partner
right?
in?
Which app are you going to use? Which, and what is the type of person you're going to be looking for, right? You're not going to be going, for the person who's just a hot piece of ass. You're going to go and you're going to look and you're going to look for certain things in them and also realize that you have certain obligations. I have to show up as a person in the world. I have to show up as somebody who's thinking about others, who's trying to grow as a human being. Does that mean you're not going to have any issues or any problems? Absolutely not, right? But the biggest thing that I've realized is I've always partnered up with people the same way that I fucked up certain relationships where I'm getting into it for what I can get out of it, not looking for the right kind of person and me being the right kind of person myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like we could talk for another hour or two. I could ask questions. We could go on and on.
You want to talk about Mormon Housewives?
Not on this episode.
Jack's favorite show.
Maybe in part.
Like I said, I'm working on myself. It's not that part of myself, right?
But I do have two more questions.
Okay.
One is, what is the number one most important piece of advice you would give somebody that is starting their business or trying to grow their business? And if they differ between the two types of people,
I would simultaneously tell someone, don't do it and do it. Like, absolutely do it with like just a dash of just be careful. And measured growth, which I think we talked about. Everyone tries to go on. Everyone thinks they need a new joiner, planer. Everyone thinks they need a saw stop and all the fancy stuff. You don't need any of that. Obviously, we have grown, but I don't know if anybody can see, but we look for old, tried and true equipment. Most of it's older than us. And not trying to get the flashiest stuff. I mean, our initial pack out kit was different bags from Goodwill and buckets, and we looked and we pulled up in a 91 Econoline. We didn't look
Look like a bad
professional.
lady living off the street.
Yeah. We've gotten a little bit tighter, a little cleaner there, but we put our attention into the detail of the work. But yeah, I guess not needing, doesn't have to look like what you think it's supposed to look like. They can look like whatever it needs to look like for that moment. We had a friend come and take our professional photos recently. She took a picture of me in the shop, and it was messy. And at first I was looking at him like, wish I had thought to clean up. That there is kind of why do we have that Folgers can that holds our pinch dogs? It's actually a useful thing, but that's in the picture. And then I got really proud of it because I'm like, this is what my wood shop looks like. This is what it's not glamorous. And I guess the advice would be to not get caught up in the romantics of it and just, do with what you can as it comes, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Advice for starting a business?
Yeah, we're growing.
We're growing. Avoid a major drug habit. Keep your overhead low. Take it out for people to
Use
see.
equipment.
Take it out for people to see. They need to see it. You need to see it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And what's your definition of craftsmanship?
Oh my God. You're going to have to go first on this one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I've ever been asked that question.
An expression of embodied wisdom.
Draw the line, cut the line.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Craft and Business Podcast. Thanks for watching. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, go ahead and check out this one. And I'll see you in the next show. Thanks. Bye.